Okay, good to go. All right, welcome everyone to the daily Bhagavatam class. Today it's my honor and privilege to introduce Madan Gopal Prabhu again, back by popular demand. He was here for the first time last month, and he's back again to speak Srimad Bhagavatam to us. He is, of course, very closely involved with ISKCON of New Jersey, the Waco Temple, and you can see, well, not right now, but they're building a new temple at Parsippany, and you can visit that at iskonparsippany.org, and he's very closely involved with building that. It's going to be a brand new Vedic temple. There it is behind him. Um, a first in this region, and it's going to be magnificent. It's a huge project. It's coming along really fast. And he also serves as ISKCON Communications Director. So without further ado, Madan Gopal Prabhu, please enlighten us.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Yashoda Dulal Prabhu, and thank you very much, Anand Bihari Prabhu, and all the devotees at Bhakti Center. So today's verse is from the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm going to share my screen. A very interesting story, very interesting katha, and something to ponder as we kick off this very sacred month of Damodar today. So the Lord is very kind in his amazing form as Damodar, and so we can dive into his pastimes, we can dive into thinking about him more deeply and bring ourselves closer to him in this month and really accelerate our spiritual growth. So we'll start with Srimad Bhagavatam. We're doing 9:18-24. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 9:18-24. Gate Rajani Sadhire Tatra Smarudati Pitu Nyavedaya Tata Sarvam Uktam Sarmishtaya Kritam. Thereafter, when the learned king returned to his palace, Devayani returned home crying and told her father Shukracharya about all that had happened because of Sarmishtha. She told how she had been thrown into the well but was saved by the king. The next verse. Durmana Bhagavan Kavya Paurohityam Vigarhayan Stuvan Vrittim Chakapotim Duhitra Sayayo Pura. As Shukracharya listened to what had happened to Devayani, his mind was very much aggrieved, condemning the profession of priesthood and praising the profession of unchavritti, collecting grains from the fields. He left home with his daughter. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. When a Brahmana adopts the profession of a kapota or pigeon, he lives by collecting grains from the field. This is called unchavritti. A Brahmana who takes to this unchavritti profession is called first class because he depends completely on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and does not beg from anyone. Although the profession of begging is allowed from a Brahmana or sannyasi, one does better if he can avoid such a profession and completely depend on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead for maintenance. Shukracharya was certainly very sorry that because of his daughter's complaint, he had to go to his disciple to beg some mercy, which he was obliged to do because he had accepted the profession of priesthood. In his heart, Shukracharya did not like his profession, but since he had accepted it, he was obliged to go unwillingly to his disciple to settle the grievance submitted by his daughter. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshunamritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we are reading this very interesting story of a conflict between Sharmishta and Devyani. And it is a very painful conflict, and the conflict extends to not just themselves, goes up to the fathers, and it's one painful thing after another. So I was reflecting on this and thinking some of the most painful things in life. This world is known as Dukhalayam. Dukhalayam means a world which is, there's nothing but pain, dukh. So physical pain, of course, most of us have felt some physical pain. It's a very painful thing depending on how bad it is. You have toothache or you got headaches, all kinds of pains. Physical pain is there. There's also mental strain. Sometimes you're really struggling hard to figure something out. Why something has happened? How am I going to fix this? And we get stressed out. We're straining our brain to solve a problem. And then there's heart deep pain. It's not caused. There's no physical pain involved. It's not that you're trying to solve a problem, but it's a heart deep pain due to personal conflicts, and especially when it is something to do with our honor or dishonor. Even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that for one who's been honored, dishonor is worse than death. Death is less painful than dishonor. So it is very, very deep. The pain is deeper than. That's one of the reasons why some people end up committing suicide, because that pain is less tolerable than the thought of dying. It's a real thing. Some of the most painful things in life are involving this heart deep pain. And in this particular story of Sharmishta and Devyani, and then of course you even see how her father Shukracharya is aggrieved. It's all about honor and dishonor, really. Now, it is one thing to have a desire for honor, appreciation, acknowledgement, and recognition. It's very natural to want it. It's very natural to appreciate these things. It's very natural to receive it even graciously. It's good, But it's another thing to be anxious about it. I hope, oh my God, if I don't get acknowledged for what I did, if I don't get recognized, I'm going to be so upset. And it becomes a part of our paranoia even. We get anxious about it, So there is a difference between, appreciating, getting recognition, and being anxious about missing out on it. They're two different things, right? So this is something that we can explore. So in the story of Sharmishta and Devyani, there is great pain due to a conflict. She threw her down the well, and then she got rescued by the king, she got married, and then the whole story goes on, and there's just one thing after another. And they both end up getting married. They do both end up getting married to the same king. And there's, of course, it continues after that, where, she's envious because the other one got a baby, and then she got a child, and the other one got envious. How did she get a child from? It's really, the whole thing is very messy. But the pain is due to a conflict, and then both their fathers also got really upset about it. It starts spreading to other people. It becomes a matter of personal honor. And then there's cursing and counter-cursing. It generates enough anger to completely destroy lives. There's a curse, and you curse the king that you just get really old. Destroys the whole life. So even just a little bit of anger or just a little conflict can really flare out and ruin not just one's own life, but multiple lives of people that you touch. So we may want to try to figure out what is the root of the problem. This is an example of a conflict, but I'm sure we can all think of similar conflicts in our lives, where really it's a lot of pain. And sometimes this pain usually comes from people who are very close to us, either our family members or our close friends, people who work with. It just really hurts us more the closer they are. And it goes to the root of the problem of mana. Mana is a sense of false prestige, you can say. It's been translated false prestige in many places. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there is a verse that lists all the qualities of a very advanced devotee. And one of the qualities is mana shunyata. Shunya means zero. And if you can bring our mana, this false prestige, down to zero, that's a quality of a very advanced devotee. This list of qualities are things that cannot be imitated. It's not possible to imitate this quality because it's an internal quality, you see. Internal qualities can't be imitated. There's nothing you can do to make a show of it. You may try to create something superficial, but to actually feel mana shunyata, that, I don't really have a very strong anxiety to get honor and respect and recognition. That is something internal. You can't show. You can pretend, but it'll easily show off when you get upset that your name wasn't called upon when other people were thanked. I wasn't thanked, and when you get upset about it, well, okay, feel it in your heart. So this is one of the tests. Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita also mentions this. If you're familiar with the 13th chapter, Krishna lists a whole bunch of things that are called the items of knowledge. Amanitvam adambitvam ahimsa kshantirajyavam acharyopashanam shaucham stairyam atma vinigraha. And the very first item on this long list, this goes on for 4 verses, this very long list, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 5 verses. The first one is amanitvam. The same thing as mana shunyata. What does that mean? It roughly translates, Prabhupada translates as humility. You see, so we know humility is one of the core tenets or core aspects of becoming a devotee. So humility, pridelessness, non-violence, amanitvam, adambitvam. Dambha means pride, and adambha means to not have pride, like that. Non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching spiritual master, and so on. And philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these are declared to be knowledge. I've just condensed this. There's a long list between these things. All these are declared to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance. So these are the qualities that comprise of what it is to be spiritually knowledgeable. So humility, this is an excerpt from that purport. Prabhupada says, as for the knowledge outlined here, the items may be analyzed. Humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. See how Prabhupada's precise wording. He's not anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored. If you're honored by others, it's fine. You'll appreciate it. Thank you. It's good. You feel good. It feels nice. You don't need to kick that away. But to be anxious about whether you'll receive it or not, well, if you have that anxiety, that means we're missing this quality of humility. The material conception of life makes us very eager to receive honor from others. But from the point of view of a man in perfect knowledge, who knows that he is not his body, anything, honor or dishonor pertaining to this body is useless. One should not be hankering after this material deception. People are very anxious to be famous for their religion, and consequently sometimes it is found that without understanding the principles of religion, one enters into some group which is not actually following religious principles and then wants to advertise himself as a religious mentor. As for actual advancement in spiritual science, one should have a test to see how far he's progressing. He can judge by these items. See, Prabhupada is saying that we should judge by our own progress by this quality. So all these lists of qualities are there, but the first one is humility, and we all know how important that is, right? For chanting, yeah, we know that Mahaprabhu's teaching that one should be more humble than a blade of grass. So, once upon a time, there was a lady doctor. This is an old story from the Middle East. And she takes her son, she's a very famous doctor, and she takes her son to a Sufi master for spiritual training. And this master accepts him, and after a few weeks, this doctor who's very famous, she comes back to check up on him. And she's looking for her son. She comes to the school, and she asks the guru that, where is my boy? She thought maybe he'll be studying somewhere or reading or perhaps reciting some verses or something like that. And then she finds out that from day one, the last 3 or 4 weeks, all he has been doing is cleaning the toilets of the ashram. That's all he's been doing. And she got very upset. She said, look, she told this teacher, right? If you needed just someone to clean the toilets, I can supply you with 10 Turkish slaves. These guys are really good at cleaning toilets. They scrub it, they shine it. And my boy can sit in class. Why are you putting him, for toilet cleaning? And so the guru explained to her that, look, ma'am, this is a school, and he's engaged in this because it is very important for all my students to first cultivate humility and try to, gradually dissolve the false ego in order for any kind of knowledge to take place. And so after she really thought about it deeply, she recognized the importance of that. In the Brahma Vaivarta Puran, there is a huge mountain. It's described like this. There's a huge mountain between the spirit soul and Krishna. Of course, Krishna is in our heart. But still, even though he is so close to us, there is a wide gaping distance and a huge block, a huge mountain. And just like the wind cannot cross over the mountain, the wind can come rushing toward the mountain. It just swirls around and just bounces back. The soul, when confronted by this mountain, cannot get his mind, his consciousness, his flow of thoughts, his emotions to connect to Krishna. There's no access to Krishna because of this massive mountain. This huge mountain is called false ego. False ego. Ahankar. And in the Madhurya Kadambini of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, this ahankar has two important components, two key components. One is aham, I am this body, I am this designation. And two, mama, this is mine. Because I am this body, all these things, these are mine. So aham and mama are two components of ego. I am black, I'm white, I'm a woman, I'm American, Indian, I'm a man, I'm thin, fat, I'm Indian American, I'm American Indian. There's a distinction between those two apparently. And so this should shift to, we all know, should shift to I am an eternal servant of Krishna. Instead of thinking this object is mine or that thing is mine, it should be redirected and realize that Krishna is mine and everything else belongs to Krishna. So that is the goal in our spiritual practice. But this transformation is not just merely an exercise in theoretics. This transformation is so enormous, gigantic, gargantuan. This false ego is really the basis of our existence in the material world. And to dismantle it and to remove it is the biggest task ahead of any serious spiritual practitioner. And it's such a pervasive part of our consciousness. It drives what we feel. That's why it's Devyani and Sarmishta, they had this massive fight because everything was based on the false ego. All their investments of emotion, their thoughts, their aspirations are circling around this aham and mama. I'm this very beautiful lady. I'm now a queen married to the king, and this and that, and this happens to have, it has to have this happen this way. I better have this way. I better get a child, just like my co-wife got a child, and so on. So aham and mama. But it's such a big project for us to even begin to dismantle it. Shukadeva Goswami, at the end of Srimad Bhagavatam, I'm talking about the end section of Srimad Bhagavatam, he brings this same point after reciting all the Bhagavatam, 10th canto, the pastimes of Lord Krishna, Damodar Leela and Krishna, all other pastimes, all the philosophy, including Uddhava Gita. After all that discussion, Shukadeva Goswami now redirects Parishit Maharaj's consciousness to this important point. So something for us to keep in mind. He describes the various kinds of annihilation. He describes one called constant annihilation, which we see happening all around us. Right now, the leaves are turning here in the Northeast, and so it's constantly changing, and they're going from green to orange, and they're falling, the falling of the leaves. If you look at our body, there's molecular level annihilation. Cells are being destroyed as newer ones are being generated. So at every moment, our body is kind of burning itself up, which is causing our old age. Our body is literally burning. It's a slow burn, but we get old really fast. So that's constant annihilation. It's happening at every level. So that's one level of annihilation that he talks about. Please keep in mind in perspective why he's talking about these things. Then there is the next level of annihilation called naimittika annihilation or occasional annihilation. This is when Lord Brahma, the creator of this universe, who's in charge of our particular universe, he goes to sleep at his night. And all the planetary systems that are below Satyaloka, they get destroyed. And every morning he wakes up and he recreates them, he reassembles all those things because he has to take a break. For him to take a break in his nap, he has a 12-hour sleeping nap, right? It's not a nap, it's a 12-hour sleep session, which lasts literally trillions of years of our years. But for him, it's 12 hours. So he has to put things away. And then he wakes up, he has to kind of put them on his table again. That's what we call recreation. So there's occasional annihilation every night of Lord Brahma. Because you have the constant annihilation, you got the occasional naimittika annihilation. Then you have the massive annihilation called total prakritic annihilation. At the end of Lord Brahma's lifetime, the entire universe gets wound down, and this is like, it's called total annihilation, and it gets sucked back into Lord Vishnu's body. And who else got sucked back is all the living entities, all the spirit souls who have not been, haven't fulfilled all their desires and just sleeping there and waiting for the next recreation, just waiting and waiting. And they're just dreaming and figuring out the next time I will really succeed in making myself happy in the material world. Next time I won't lose the opportunity to make a lot of money. Next time I will make sure that I invest in Bitcoin when it's only $1, and then I'll be a billionaire. I'll be so happy. So we make plans even though we're sitting in the body of Vishnu, because we are still conditioned to think that material world can make us happy. So there's a massive prakritic annihilation. And then Shukadeva Goswami talks about an even bigger annihilation, the final type of annihilation, which is even bigger than this, which is what? And this is what I found the most mind-blowing. It is the annihilation of the false ego. It is only when the false ego of the jiva is totally destroyed, totally dissolved, can the soul be freed from the material world, which is, even in the total annihilation, the soul is not freed. All these conditioned souls, they just go into the body of Mahavishnu, waiting and making plans on what they'll enjoy when the creation takes place again. So we will keep coming and going, in and out of the sleep and wake form, sleeping and waking, but still within the realm of material consciousness. As long as the false ego is there, we'll be stuck in this cycle. And so to transform our lives and to dissolve the ego is such a grandiose project. It is so big. It is on the scale of this Mahapralaya, this Prakritic annihilation. This is not just a poetic analogy. It is the very key for us to get out of our false situation. And so the cultivation of genuine humility is not something trivial. It's not something to be trivialized or to be made a mockery of when we're looking in the mirror. let me see, how can I pretend to be humble today? I will say this, I'll do this, I'll offer obeisance this other way so that everybody notices, and I'll say just the right things. But am I cultivating genuine humility? Can I look at myself in the mirror and say, I did that today? It's hard to be humble when you're so great, but somehow I manage. Somehow I'm managing how to be humble. So the cultivation of humility is the way to make progress on this big project. So now His Holiness Radhanath Swami, he talks about, in one lecture I heard, it's very nice, he says there are 3 types of humility. One is real humility, the other is false humility, and the other is in-between humility. So real humility is a natural state of consciousness. It's almost paradoxical. Mahaprabhu says, Premera Swabhava Jahan, Premera Sambandha, She Mane Krishna More Nahi Prema Gandha. Wherever there's a relationship of love, of Godhead, the natural symptoms are that the devotee does not think himself a devotee, but always thinks he is not even a drop of love for Krishna. This is how humble he is. He genuinely recognizes that he doesn't have enough love for Krishna. This is a natural state. It's a very pure state of humility. It's not fake. So this we can at least theoretically comprehend, at least understand. It's a very high state. Then false humility is very pretentious. This is also not hard to understand. It's pretentious. Whenever we pretend to show off externally something about our so-called spiritual progress, just to get some attention, then we feel good about ourselves, and then we get recognized. It's external only, and we do it to get accolades and recognition. And then there's something called in-between humility, where we are sincerely trying to be humble, but there is still a lot of pride, or maybe traces of pride, that we need to work on. Even though this is not a pure state, this is a very practical place that we as sadhakas, as practitioners, should be aiming for. In other words, we should, as quickly as possible, abandon the show-off false humility and then work toward getting genuine humility. We have the understanding that, look, I'm not pure at the pure level, but I'm seeking at least to develop that component that has sincerity. It has sincerity of purpose. There's a struggle for genuine growth. And there is a gradual cultivation of true humility as we learn to serve others. So I bring back our focus to Prabhupada's definition in the purport. Humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. These are litmus tests. Am I anxious? Sometimes, this test is a very private matter. It's like to check the acid level in your body. You get this litmus paper, and you put it in a cup, and you urinate in the cup, and then you see, okay, how much acid there in my body. Usually when you do that kind of test, it's not a public thing, you do it in private. So we have to assess ourselves privately rather than hearing it from someone else. It's always better to figure it out ourselves. It's more painful when it comes from outside, So am I anxious? Am I able to let go of at least some of that anxiety of being recognized, acknowledged? It's not easy, but at least we can measure our level of anxiety, our level of attachment. Have any of you had this experience? The feeling of immediate satisfaction that comes from hearing someone praise you or give us honor. It feels so good. We don't even need to eat sometimes if someone gives us enough compliments. I can live on that for a whole month. Who needs to eat? It feels so good. It's so nourishing, it seems, As soon as someone praises our intelligence, become dysfunctional. Prabhu, you're so good. And all of a sudden, what was that? I was going to say something, but now I forgot. You were saying what about so good about what? Can you elaborate, please? What am I so good about? You see, when flattery enters our heart, it is almost like we can't do anything against it. We're helpless. We become paralyzed. Did you know that most lions in America, they don't live in zoos. They're actually kept in private homes and part of private collections. And sometimes when a lion escapes from a private collection, it happened in Ohio a couple of years ago, and then they have to catch them. And when they catch them, they use this dart gun It's a tranquilizer dart, and then when the lion gets hit, all its power is gone. It just starts yawning and says, oh, I'm going to take some rest now. So flattery works in the same way. When it hits you, it's like a paralyzing, debilitating dart. Which is why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he says, anyone who flatters me is my enemy. Because it has that effect. So a very important aspect in spiritual life is cultivating spiritual understanding, spiritual realization, spiritual knowledge. But humility is a prerequisite for getting realizations, for understanding spiritual knowledge. Without humility, genuine humility, it is not possible to have actual knowledge that has substance, because the humility acts as a block for that knowledge to come through. You see, there are even spiritual teachers who will not accept proud disciples because they know there's no point, there's no possibility of this person learning anything from me. It's just a complete waste of time for me and for him. There's a story of a guru in Vrindavan, and there's a very, very talented, brilliant, scholarly gentleman from Bengal that come to Vrindavan to become the disciple, take a shelter, and learn spiritual knowledge under this guru. So he approached him, and he says, Guru Maharaj, I'm soul surrendered unto you. Please accept me. I want to be a devotee of the Lord. I want to learn spiritual knowledge under you. And the Guru Maharaj said, no, I am not going to accept you. I'm not going to take you as my disciple. Because the Guru sensed that man had a bit of pride in his background, in his learnings and his high parentage. But the student was persistent. Day after day he came, knocking at the door, falling at his feet. Gurudev, please, you must accept me. I don't know where else to go. I want to learn. I know you are the greatest devotee available in Vrindavan, and I don't know where else to go. I want to learn. So then Guru Maharaj said, look, only if you can get me just go out and find somebody, someone or something that is inferior to you in all respects, then I will accept you as my disciple. So the man thought, oh, that's so easy. I'll just go outside and get the first guy I see. Pretty much most people are losers out here anyway. After all, I'm so talented, athletic, strong. I'm pretty good at sports also. I'm very good looking, high Brahmin parentage. I scored really high on those standardized tests, quite rich. So that should be so easy. So he goes outside, he sees some guy cutting grass, and he says, oh, this guy, he's less than me in everything. So he says, hey, why don't you come and join me? I want to introduce you to my guru. So then he starts, yeah, sure, okay, I'll come. So he starts walking, and then realizes, wait a minute, he was cutting grass really nicely, and he was very muscular, and there's no way I can cut grass like him. So at least at this job of cutting grass, he is better than me. So he canceled the program and said, no, actually, I don't think this is going to work. So he let him go, and he went back to cutting grass, right? Then he starts walking, and he sees a donkey. Oh, yes, the donkey is so dumb. It's a foolish animal. There's grass everywhere to eat, but still he carries the burden of the washerman's clothes. It's so stupid, so I can get the donkey. Started taking the donkey to the Guru Maharaj's house. On the way, he realized, wait a minute, his donkey, he can carry so many pounds of weight on his back. There's no way I can carry it. So at least in aspect of carrying weight, he's better than me. So he let the donkey go. Then he was feeling depressed. Oh my God, how will I get admission in this school? Then he started walking and he's looking around, and he saw a pile of stool. In India sometimes there's, in the fields sometimes. Anyway, there's a pile of stool, human stool, and there's a worm sticking out of it, like looking around, And he says, wow, this has to be the most abominable, most fallen, ridiculous thing. Definitely, this is the worst. Finally, I found the key to getting admission in this in ashram. So he took the worm. He got excited. He's going to show Guru Maharaj, and he said, "No, I should at least wash it." So he washes the worm, puts it in a little Ziploc bag, whatever it is, and he takes it and he's very excited. And he knocks on about to knock on Guru Maharaj's door, and then he realizes, wait a minute, even this worm in the stool is doing a service that I cannot. He's breaking down the stool and cleaning up the environment, and he's bringing a balance to the ecosystem. I cannot do that. And so he started crying. He let the worm go. And he says, there's no way I'm going to get admission to Guru Maharaj's ashram. So he just knocked and he told Guru Maharaj that, Guru Maharaj, I'm sorry, I spent so much time and I could not find even a creature who is less than me in every respect. So I'm just going to pack my bags. I'm going to go home. I'm sorry to have wasted your time. And that's the time when Guru Maharaj embraces him and says, now you can join my ashram because you understand. So then, you see, the point is, the humility is the beginning of actual knowledge. After hearing from Mahaprabhu, Sanatana Goswami asked him, now you please put your lotus foot on my head so I can realize this knowledge. That means even after he got all that knowledge downloaded, but he'll not go from the head to the heart unless the foot comes on the head. See? And even Arjuna, Krishna heard Arjuna giving all his arguments, but Krishna did not give him knowledge until Arjuna surrendered to him in humility. He says, I'm a soul surrendered to you, please instruct me. And that's the point when the Bhagavad Gita really starts and Krishna gives. So for all of us to take home is for us to be able to live a life relatively free from the anxieties that come from these conflicts. We need to work on our false ego, and we need to really make it a priority so that whatever years we have left in our life are best utilized in making substantial spiritual progress. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and we can end over here. And if there's any discussions, we can have that now. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Haribol, Madan Gopal Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. That was very enlightening. I had a question. How do we avoid feeding someone's false ego and yet give appreciation, which is so essential for encouraging devotees in bhakti? And if we are the recipient of encouraging words, then how do we treat it as, hey, this is meant to be an impetus to get better, not that I am the best thing since sliced pizza?
Yes, it's a very good question. Very good question. Encouragement is so important. Encouragement to ourselves and encouragement to others, especially those who look up to us. Perhaps they're new to the process, and we want to give them encouragement. It is the foundation of pure interactions, positive encouragement, reinforcement, and growth is one word: sincerity. For example, a person has come recently to the Bhakti Center, and he is engaged in making garlands for the Lord. And he just learned last week how to do it, and this week he's on his own, he's making his first garland. And you're in charge of the garland department, for example. So then you see his first garland, and you're like, wow, this is brilliant. I especially like the fact the way you tied the knots really tight, just like I told you last week. But the fact that you incorporated this color alternating, and you chose the colors based on the deity's outfit. That was awesome. Now, that is a sincere, encouraging comment. What makes it sincere and effective is you are very specific in your appreciations. The more specific you are, the better it is. The more focused you are to show that, okay, you brought your talent in. This is something that we had not done before, but it looks great. And the way you did this color combination, and the fact that you considered the deity's dress for today in this, it shows that you have a good eye for detail. So the more detailed, more straightforward we are with our comments and with our recognition, the more sincere it is. And then that does not fall in the category of flattery. Flattery is what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is saying you should avoid. Flattery means to give undue praise purely for the purpose of inflating the other person's ego to the point that they lose a sense of judgment. Right? It's like that. You don't want to put a tranquilizer dart in a lion, So that is the difference in flattery. And then now, how to digest positive reinforcement and encouragement that we have received from others is there are certainly different ways to do it, positive ways to do it. One, the most common way I've been taught, or at least I've seen, is the recognition that yes, I managed to accomplish this particular thing today, but I cannot take credit for it, at least not 100%, because it's all, I got the blessings of this and this devotee who taught me how to do it. I have the blessings of my Guru Maharaj and the Acharyas who have inspired me to do this. And you're telling that I'm really great at it. I kind of know I'm not that great as you're telling me. However, I will accept it as a blessing that in the future I will be. So we take it as a blessing, that we thank you for your blessing and your encouragement. So then we give the credit where it's due, for the people who taught us, the great souls who inspired us, and so on. And then we also recognize that it may not be 100% accurate. I'm not the best garland maker in the world. Oh, you're the best garland maker in the world. That's debatable, but I take that as a blessing that maybe one day I will be. So the two things: you give credit and take as a blessing. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Please ask questions or share reflections, devotees who are on. And, brief announcement, I do have to drop off in a minute to lead a work meeting at 8 o'clock. Brief announcement, tomorrow and day after, Hari Parshad Prabhu will be speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. For those of you who don't know him, he's a very scholarly devotee where he's also very sweet in his sharing of Krishna consciousness. And he especially recites Krishna's baby pastimes with so much relish that you will fall in love with Krishna more and more. So he's going to be on tomorrow and day after. And then tonight at the Bhakti Center, if you are local or like Gail and me, for example, in New Jersey, we can travel to the Bhakti Center 6:30 to 9 with His Holiness Kadambakanand Swami, Achyuta Gopi, and other wonderful souls to celebrate the installation of Sri Gaurachandra, and to celebrate the first evening of Kartik with Damodarashtakam. So thank you all.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Madan Gopal Prabhu. Wonderful presentation as always. Wonderful smile. What a wonderful day to start Kartik. Thank you. Quick question. You spoke about humility, and sometimes we tend to understand humility as being meek and having this tendency to shy away from confronting, standing up to toxic people and toxic stuff in our life. Could you elaborate on that, on the relationship between us as devotees and conflict? Are we avoiding it, or are we eager to fight for Krishna? How does that work? Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a very good question. Humility is actually something that is very much misunderstood. And we have seen this come up again and again. The avoidance of conflict in the name of, there's a lecture I heard from Srila Prabhupada where he says that, when someone comes attacking or when someone is offending a great devotee or something like that, then you must fight and defend. And he says, not at that time, Trinadapi Sunichana. He says like that. You don't do Trinadapi Sunichana at that time when it's time to fight. So then we have to just, when is it time to fight then? Should I just constantly be fighting about everything? Should I be constantly complaining? So when it comes to our own inconvenience, our own false prestige, our own, say, comforts, our own, sense gratification, for example, or even conveniences, we should not get into a fight unnecessarily. That's humility. Once Srila Prabhupada was in the plane, and this is the time when people were allowed to smoke in the airplane. Can you imagine? Nowadays you can't imagine, but back then, I even remember going on flights where people used to smoke. And there used to be a smoking section and non-smoking section. So Prabhupada obviously is saying non-smoking section, but some guy just in front of Prabhupada's seat started smoking. He's not supposed to do it, but he started. And the Prabhupada's servant sitting next to him was getting very uncomfortable and feeling so angry that, our spiritual master is going to have to smell this guy smoke. So he was going to call the stewardess and tell this guy to put out a cigarette. And he's telling Prabhupada, I'm just going to have to complain. This guy's getting annoying. Prabhupada said, no, let it be. Let him smoke. It's okay. Can you imagine Prabhupada's humility? He says, then he told him, if we can tolerate, then what's the difference between us and them? So when it came to personal comfort, personal, inconveniences, it's okay, so you can tolerate. So that's an example that we apply humility. But when it's time to fight and defend, we must go out. For example, you must have heard this Bangladeshi violence that happened to our devotees in Bangladesh just last week, and we're organizing protests all over this country, including New York and other places, where we're going to go out and protest and demand that security be provided, justice be. So this is now we're fighting for it. So it's not that now the devotee is being attacked and killed that we're not going to fight. We have to defend. So it is a matter of the principle, that we have to apply. When we have to defend, when someone aggressor is coming to destroy our temples and someone is coming to kill our devotees, certainly we're not going to just apply meekness there. You see, humility does not mean to think less of yourself, that I'm so bad, I'm so low, I'm this. No. Humility does not mean to think less of yourself. It means to think of yourself less. See, it means to spend less time thinking of yourself and more time thinking of others, think of how we can uplift others. So if that means that we go out and stand on a stage and preach to 50,000 people loudly the glories of the Lord, it may seem like, oh, why is he like, he thinks he knows everything, that he can stand and talk to 50,000 people? What does he think he is? He thinks he's some great know-it-all? That seems like the antithesis of meekness and humility. But no, humility means to do for others. And if that means to get on the stage and shout loudly and speak to others, then it's driven by compassion. So those are the two aspects, that if it's for our personal comfort, we tolerate. If it's our personal so-called sense of false honor, false prestige, we let it go. But when it comes to glorifying the Lord, when it comes to defending the Lord and his devotees, the assets of the Lord, when it comes to defending the principle of Dharma, then we fight, we take up whatever is at our, available, the proper, appropriate way to do the defending, and apply Trinadapi where it is applicable. You can hear that in Prabhupada's lectures. It's actually pretty amazing. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you. There's a question from Kartik in the chat box, and we have to take it because of his affiliation with the Holy Month.
Yeah, okay, I see that. So how can one guard against false pride in a position of responsibility or leadership? And this is a great question, because it is very easy to get sucked up into this idea that I am in charge of everything, and therefore everything that I say must happen, must be done. And my opinion, my ideas are superior to everybody else's, since I am the leader. Now, there are some practical ways with which leadership can be effective, and some that is toxic leadership. And this applies in any environment, even if it's say corporate environment, or even if it's a material situation. There are leaders, and then there are those who are the subordinates. So in recent decades, this notion of emotional intelligence has become more popular, and it's gained a lot of traction. That those leaders who have a sense of connecting empathically with their subordinates and with others who they're working with. Empathically means to feel emotionally their pain, to feel what they're going through. Those leaders are far more effective, even though they may or may not be as, say, technically competent, but they end up being far more effective leaders, because empathy as a quality is one of the aspects of humility. To understand that what other people feel is important. If someone has humility, they don't care about other people's feelings. But now what they feel, what they think, what they value, if we can somehow try to put ourselves in their shoes, try to resonate with their pain, then we can be much more effective leaders. And that is a big guardrail against false pride. And how can we manifest that as leaders? Is always giving opportunities and even structures to allow for input from everybody, and a genuine sense of curiosity to understand other people's positions. Most companies have review periods where the employee will get an opportunity to formally discuss on a periodic basis, maybe twice a year, 3 times a year, what they want to express themselves or working under that manager, and so on. And so that's a structure which allows input. But if your whole attitude is constantly allowing input, constantly trying to look for signs of maybe someone is uncomfortable, this is called resonance or empathy. So if we can cultivate empathy, cultivate this emotional intelligence, then we can be effective leaders and apply humility in our leadership. This is a big subject in and of itself. But Krishna also employs this empathy as a leader. He's our leader. You might have heard of this verse in the Bhagavatam, spoken by Lord Brahma, in Lord Brahma's prayers. He says, Tattenu kampam sasamikshamano bhunjane vatma kritam vipakam. That one who continues to tolerate the pain of his sinful reactions while still offers obeisances and serves the Lord, to that person, he receives the mercy, and while waiting for the mercy of the Lord, the liberation becomes the rightful claim. In that verse, Krishna's mercy is known as anukampa. Anukampa is one of the highest categories of mercy. Krishna is so merciful at that level that he trembles with you. He feels what you feel. Kampa means to tremble, kampana. And anukampa means he trembles at your resonance. If you are feeling fearful, he will also shiver with you to feel your pain. And then he'll step into your pain and then embrace you. That's the level of intimacy Krishna offers. That's the flavor of mercy he offers. So if Krishna can employ that emotional intelligence, the resonance to try to feel your pain, we have been endowed by the Lord to feel others' pains. Even babies, when they feel other babies crying, they will cry. We all have that. So if we can cultivate that as leaders, it's a big guardrail against false pride creeping in and making us jerks. Very well. Thank you for the question, Karthik.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
I don't mean to amplify your ego, your false ego, but I would just like to say thank you for this beautiful class. The images, the verses that were displayed, everything, it just imprinted in my heart and in my mind so beautifully, and it gave me an idea. I was actually, this morning when I was showering, I was thinking, because my son, he's at the teenage age, and I'm thinking, I don't want him to have this false ego, because he's like, oh, mom, look at me, I'm doing, and he's starting to build muscle, and he's a really smart kid. And I'm like thinking, what if I put an image of Krishna in the middle, and then I'll put an image of him, because I have a little frame for him, and and a picture of his friends, and a picture like the community of what is actually helping him become the person that he is. And all of this is because I used to tell him, wow, honey, I'm so proud of you. You did it. And now I'm just telling him, oh, remember, it's Krishna. it's God, it's because you have God in your heart and you have that peace to be able to be present. But to see it is something completely different than to just hear it. So thank you so much for your sharing your beautiful voice as well. It's very, I don't know, it's soothing and it hits the heart. So thank you for everything.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, raising a teenager is quite a bit of, it's a very big job to do. I have my own teenager. My son is turning 19 this year, his second year of college, But yeah, it's always fun. But the imagery of the Bhagavatam is outstanding. This is why I love reading the Bhagavatam, and just all the images that come when you want to make a point, and you just mention a few verses to kind of make a point. It's the verses, they do the magic. The Bhagavatam, there's a history, and this is the Lord who orchestrated these histories. So the Bhagavatam is very powerful in aligning us with the way He wants us to be. So definitely always be joining this Bhagavatam class, and let us all grow together. Thank you for your comment. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hey everyone, did you notice how he backs up his answers by Shastra? Isn't that cool? That's the way to do it. Madam Gopal Prabhu ki jai. Thank you so much. Okay, wishing everybody happy Kartik, happy new day in Krishna consciousness. Come again and to enjoy Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a history orchestrated by Krishna and his devotees.
Hare Bo.
Madan Gopal and all of you. Hare Krishna.
Hey, Prabhupada.